Hey guys, we are here at one of the most unique local fish stores I have ever seen. This is the Aqua Dome. Let's go check it out. So I was visiting Austin, Texas for a weekend, and I had to find a really cool local fish store. Anytime I'm traveling, I try to find one. And if you've ever been to Austin, Texas, it is an awesome place, but it has some quirks, and this Aqua Dome fit right in with that. And you can see once we walk in, it is such a unique setup. They jammed in so many aquariums, but they are also in a circular pattern here because of the dome shape. So that's kind of what we're looking at first, is just the overall situation and layout of this fish store. It goes on, and the layout was just really interesting to see in person. And we'll get to the fish and get some highlights here because they did have a really good selection of fish and some cichlids that I had not seen in person for a very long time. So the first floor here, you can go around and around. There's so many tanks. And then when you go upstairs, you can see the dome shape here. But while you're going upstairs, you are getting led into the saltwater section, and you can also see it has a skylight at the top middle there, which is just really unique. I've never seen anything like it. But the upstairs is just all their saltwater. I like how it's kind of separate like this, and we're not going to spend a ton of time looking at the individual saltwater fish and tanks because we always focus on freshwater and cichlids, but they did have a really good selection of saltwater up here as well. But as we go back down the stairs, you can see they just have a ton of equipment and dry goods and everything you need along the outside. They have a couple really cool display tanks, this freshwater setup with some community fish and some algae eaters. And then they had a really cool reef tank. I love this. I watched it for a while, just really well put together here. And then next to the reef tank, they also had a smaller saltwater tank with a clownfish and some anemones. And I watched that clownfish swim in and around its anemone. It was a pretty cool tank setup.
Check this one out, guys. I am just mesmerized by this tank right here.
So this tank here had some awesome Geophagus weinmillerii, a pretty good size, probably about 3 inches. And you don't see weinmillerii that often anymore. So this is actually the first time I've seen them in years at a fish store or in person. And they had a really good quality selection here, and the rope fish swimming in and around. It was really mesmerizing just watching all of these fish. I don't know why they're swimming in the corner of the tank like that, but it was really cool to watch them for a while. And this is the start of the cichlid selection. But next to them, they had some nice silver dollars, some flagtails, some really nice rainbow cichlids, and maybe that's what the Geophagus weinmillerii we're looking at, was that rainbow cichlid. And then you had some fire eels just kind of poking out there and watching me. Next to them were some Geophagus topos, one of my favorites. And then this one here had some shovel-nosed catfish. These guys get huge. And then they had some really big electric blue acaras in here. I love electric blue acaras if you know anything about the channel. And these had some good size. I think the biggest one in here was probably about 5.5 to 6 inches. They also had some angelfish. This store had a massive selection of angelfish. We'll see some more here in a bit. But this is just kind of the start of the cichlid selection. It gets more unique and interesting as we go, in my opinion.
This is incredible. One of the coolest things here, some really big albino heckelii.
These guys are absolutely incredible. Threadfinicara, they are the Acarithes heckelii. The normal version is a little more tan and brown, whereas the albinos here obviously are more white with orange, and the males get incredible trailers to their dorsal fins. You can see these are really good size, close to their adult size, and had some amazing fins to them and starting to get that orange color pattern along their gills and in their fins as well. So some of the best albino heckelii I've seen. And then next to them, they had an Oscar with a Nicaraguan female. The Nicaraguan cichlid is an underrated one in my opinion, a really nice Central American. This Oscar had some great pattern to him, not quite a tiny juvenile, but had some decent size. And then you had him in the tank with some blood parrots. They also had some juvenile monsters here with some albino arowana and some other catfish in this tank. The arowana here looked really healthy, and they also had a young Giardini, And I think these guys get a little more aggressive for the arowana species. And they also had some peacock bass, the azules and the zingus. And then they had 2 flower horns in the store. This one here, absolutely awesome. Really cool color pattern. I love the red, especially when it comes to flower horns. But they also had this one, I believe it's the Thai silk, but it's the light blue color pattern and very active and personable like all flower horns are going to be. This is an acquired taste or, you know, a polarizing cichlid because some people love flower horns and some people hate them. But they also had some big plecos just hanging out. This one was in a tank with some discus. But one of my favorite things I saw in the whole store was the strawberry leprinus. These aren't very common, but they're South American fish, and they don't get too big. They don't get as big and as aggressive as the banded leprinus, which I had before, and it was super aggressive. These guys stay a little more peaceful. They get some really cool color to them, and I wish I would have found these around me or even available online. I would have bought them by now. These were awesome, really good looking strawberry leprinus. Maybe I'll get some in the future if I am able to find them. Another cichlid I have not seen in a long time is the festivum. These guys are super underrated as well. There's some fire mouths, some Geophagus steindachnerii. I had a female steindachnerii for a long time. And then they had some big blood parrots. If you're into that, they're not really my favorite type of cichlid, but some people love them. Another really big pleco. And then they had some kind of oddballs, another peacock bass in there. And then they had some really big barb species, filamentosa barbs, and with a good looking Geophagus pyrocephalus. But yeah, the Central and South American cichlid options here are great. I mean, a lot of them are pretty small. They didn't have like massive size cichlids for the most part, but you could really find anything you wanted here with some that are pretty rare. They also had one of the smallest Oaxaca puffers I've ever seen. These guys are awesome when they get big, but really funny to watch them when they're so small. The eyes are like just as big as their body. And then they had another really nice looking puffer next to him. But then we start getting into some other unique cichlids, some dwarf cichlid species too. This is the green dwarf pike. They also had some smaller albino heckelii here, so some smaller versions of the big adults we saw earlier. They had some baby Oscars, some small electric pulacaras as well. And then they had some keyhole cichlids, which I love to see. This is another one that, you know, just hasn't really been around the hobby much lately. I don't know if people just haven't collected them as often. They just kind of have disappeared from the hobby, which is kind of a shame because they're an awesome cichlid. They also had some green Texas, some Carpentis. Again, these aren't that big, but once they start to grow into their full maturity, they are awesome fish. Really small Severums along with some Bolivian rams in here. They also had some big goldfish. I'm not really into keeping goldfish at the moment, but you could definitely get anything you wanted there. A lot of tanks, and it just goes on and on. So many aquariums. I can't show all the fish, just kind of the highlights, but I was just really in awe of how many tanks they had just wrapped around this aqua dome. They had some really good plant selections, some tanks set up just for a lot of their plants. And like I said before, they had a ton of angelfish. All the different types you could ever want, all the color patterns and the varieties, and some of them were pretty good sizes as well. They just had all of these different types, from assorted to koi angelfish to the black marbles, all of the types. This tank had a lot of Congo tetras, which I really love. I would like to get a group of them. Really nice color and cool looking fins to them. Some tiger silver dollars, some more fire eels along with some Satana perica jurupari. Again, one of my favorite types of earth eaters. And then going deeper into some of the dwarf cichlids, these are the Apistogramma cockatoides, the double reds. These have some of the coolest fins in the hobby. Pretty underrated cichlid in my opinion because they don't get too big and they're not too aggressive. They are kind of feisty towards each other. You can even see them kind of picking at each other at times, especially if you have a male and female ratio. That's not ideal. But really, really nice color patterns to their fins, and the males get a spiked dorsal fin as well. Maybe my favorite Apistogramma is the Magmasterii. I had one for about 4 years. Really cool red color patterns, and then they also get a spiked dorsal fin. So definitely one of my favorites. maybe my favorite dwarf cichlid in the hobby today. They also had some more rare apistos. These are the panduros. Some subtle color to them, but as they mature, they also get pretty awesome. And then they had all the different types of rams, black rams, gold rams, there's electric blues. We showed the Bolivian rams earlier, and then we had the German blue rams here. So you could get any of the types of rams you could ever ask for here, as well as the crebensis. And this is another one I haven't had in a long time. I would like to set up a tank with some crebensis soon. They're a really cool African river fish that I think gets overlooked at times because they are awesome and they get really cool color, and you just don't need a massive tank to be able to keep them, so that's awesome. And then moving into the African cichlid selection, again, there weren't massive fish, but they had all of the different types and species I think that you could ever ask for. We saw the Malawi eye biters, the Excochromis, the deep water haps. They just had a great selection of peacocks, haps, and mbuna. The Rhodesii, one of our all-time favorites. Alec had some big Rhodesiis in the past. Sunshine peacocks, males, females, everything you could really want. I found this one to be pretty awesome, the rock crebensis. I believe it's a Lake Victorian hap species, so they get pretty big and some awesome color, but the females you can see are pretty yellow with some cool color patterns to them even at a young age. So this would be a pretty cool like breeding group if you're ever into that, the rock crebensis. And then the mbuna species, they had a lot of yellow labs and the Solosi, which is a really underrated fish. The males change colors. They are yellow when they're young, but they get bluer color patterns to them as they start to mature as larger males. And they also had this solo flagtail just chilling, an awesome South American fish. But then we start getting into the Lake Tanganyikan fish with the Frontosa, of course. And then one of my favorites lately is the Julietta. So these are the Transcriptus. We also have the Ringani with some more yellowish color patterns through them. The elongated torpedo-shaped body is just really cool to me, and they have so many different types that it really is interesting. And then they have some more Lake Tanganyikans, the Sex fasciatus and Tricephalus. These are a little more rare, some awesome Lake Tanganyikans. I probably would have picked these guys up as well if I lived in the area. And then here we go, the type that I have, the Julietta ornatus, which have some yellowish color patterns in them. So mine right now are pretty small still, and they just have the black stripes and a more yellowish gray body pattern to them, but they will get much larger and much more yellow, even some yellow in the fins, like that big male that's showing up right there. Absolutely stunning fish, and I can't wait for mine to grow into that. They also had some oddballs, bala sharks, they had everything, some tetras, barbs, bichures, so many denizen barbs and clown loaches, community fish like this just all over the place. You could just find almost anything you could ever ask for here, which was really, really cool to see. They also had the Regani pike cichlids, which are pretty cool, and here are just some of the good-looking community fish, some Corydoras and tetras and rainbow fish. Like I said, they had just about everything you could want here. And one thing to note is, unfortunately, they do not have online sales. They don't ship any fish at this time, but if you're ever in the Austin, Texas area, I would highly recommend checking this out, not only for the dome structure and how unique that is, but for the amazing selection, not only of cichlids, but all fish from community to saltwater and even to koi.
As if this place couldn't get any cooler, I was about to leave and I heard some water rustling out here, and sure enough, they have a whole outdoor section with some koi and a koi pond, so let's check that out. You got these covered totes with a lot of different sized koi, really nice water feature here, but this is an amazing koi pond with a waterfall, really nice big koi in here as well. Really healthy looking. I love the color on that guy. And that guy's huge. Another big outdoor tote full of goldfish here. And then over here we have all different koi, different sizes and different vats. Really awesome. And I'm sure they do really well in the Austin, Texas weather. You don't have to worry about the cold winters like we do in Chicago. And guys, I was just about to call my Uber and I noticed another pond here with some turtles and massive koi. This guy's even coming up to greet me. Really cool. That's a massive fish down there. A lot of little guys too, but then you have all these guys perched up in the center, just basking in the sun. Tough life. Okay guys, so that was an incredible local fish store tour. Amazing cichlid selection. I love the unique nature with this dome. It really is fitting for Austin, Texas. If you're ever in the area, I would definitely recommend checking this place out. Thanks again for watching guys, and we'll see you next time.